recognized by the Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce. We recognize the economic impact that the mushroom business has on Chester County and across the Commonwealth. Pennsylvania leads the country in mushroom growing. There are 57 mushroom farms in Pennsylvania, most family-owned and operated, with an estimated workforce of 9,000 people. The farms and the packing operations provide substantial tax contributions, as many of us know. They support many secondary businesses, and they play an integrated role with other agricultural sectors. Family-owned and operated mushroom farms have been growing mushrooms in the Commonwealth for more than 120 years. And today, many of these farms are being run by third and fourth and fifth generation families. Many of those people are with us today. The reason most U.S. mushroom production takes place in a three-county area in southeastern Pennsylvania is mainly historical. This is where commercial U.S. mushroom production began in the early 1900s. In the days before refrigeration, this area had easy transportation access via rail to major cities on the East Coast, as well as readily available raw inputs required to make the nutrient-rich material called substrate on which mushrooms grow. Last year, Pennsylvania mushroom production accounted for 64% of the total U.S. volume of sales for agaricus mushrooms, which is the most popular variety, and includes white button, baby bella, and portobello mushrooms. That is a crop value of $560 million. Let me repeat that. That is a crop value of $560 million. With new packaging and cooling technology, fresh mushrooms are shipped daily from Pennsylvania to California. There is no impediment to fresh mushrooms being shipped from Mexico to Pennsylvania. However, without an adequate labor force, production will definitely move where workers can be found, and most likely outside of the United States. We are here today to stress the economic impact that the mushroom industry has on Southern Chester County and the Pennsylvania agricultural community, and to explain that this major economic driver is in jeopardy due to the agriculture workforce crisis. There are dozens of small businesses in this community that exist solely because of the mushroom industry, and there are dozens more that the mushroom farm community provides the bulk of their business, including paper companies, electrical companies, heating and air conditioning, auto repair shops, accountants, lawyers, and the list goes on and on. Without the labor force to harvest mushrooms, there will be no need for these supplementary businesses or their employees. Today, this room is filled with mushroom growers, but next time, it's going to be those businesses that are closing because the mushroom farm community is not buying equipment or supplies or services. To talk more about the labor crisis in the mushroom farm community, I would now like to introduce Megan Klotzbach, a fifth-generation mushroom farmer at Mother Earth Organic Mushrooms and C.P. Yateman and Company, and also a member of the Chamber's Mushroom Task Force and chairwoman of the Mushroom Farmers of Pennsylvania Committee of the American Mushroom Institute.
My name is Megan Klotzbach, and I've been in this industry since I was very young, and now I'm here trying to help out this industry continue to grow. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your day to learn what we have to say. So what are PA mushrooms? Well, as Cheryl mentioned, we are composed of a lot of different industries. So we are composters, growers, and fresh packers, which may seem obvious. But we also have electricians, plumbers, mechanics, IT support, lawyers, CPAs, accountants, researchers, and the list does go on and on. Many of these companies work solely for the mushroom industry. They only work for the farms in this room and the others who can't be here today. Some of them also are it's just a large part of their business. You know, it's not one job each month. It's every single day they are at our farms. They are working for us, supporting us. So how do we do it? Well, there's 6 stages here. We've got making compost, filling the compost, spawning, casing, pinning, and then on to harvesting. I'm gonna give you a little background of how this cycle works and how we grow mushrooms so that you guys maybe have a better understanding of what we're doing every day and what it means to grow mushrooms, and also the lingo that some of us may use in the open discussion later so you guys understand what we're talking about. So this cycle here, it's gonna be about a 12 to 14 week cycle for each crop. That's from the beginning of compost through that last mushroom being harvested off the bed. So before I jump into the exact stages, I just want to explain how mushroom farms recycle and how we are sustainability. So we take all of the waste materials from the other farms in the area, like chicken litter. That's not going in the landfill. We're paying them to bring it here and turn it into our substrate for our mushrooms. Hay and straw that is not top quality. It can't be sold for high dollar to feed animals. We buy that at about $100 a ton. I mean, that's huge to help those other farmers that cannot get rid of those waste materials. We're paying them for them. Straw bedded horse manure, another thing. Where would that go? Something we take on. We pay the horse farmers to take that on. So we're putting all that into our compost. We're going to go through that growing cycle. After that growing cycle is completed, we're going to take everything out of the house, out of the double. And we're going to turn that into a fertilizer for the other local farmers. So we're going to take their waste, and we're also going to then give them a natural fertilizer for their crops on their fields. All right, so composting. Like I said, we're taking all these other farmers' waste. So mulch, hay, and straw, straw-bedded horse manure, cocoa hulls, corn cobs, cottonseed hulls, chicken litter, everything they can't get rid of. So we're going to water it down. It's going to be about 3 weeks, depending on the time of year, depending on the materials, to break that compost down and have it ready for mushroom production. So next we're going to fill it into our mushroom double. You can kind of see in the background there what a conventional double looks like. When I say double, it just means that there's 2 doors going into the room. It's just our Pennsylvania double is what we call it. So we're going to be filling it, all that compost in with the tractor. That's manual labor. Once it gets inside from that conveyor, we have people standing inside shoveling that compost onto the beds, making sure it's level, evening it out. So we're already starting a very high labor intensive process. So the next thing we're going to do after we pasteurize it is we're going to spawn. Spawn is like planting the seed. So mushrooms don't have seeds, we have spores, mycelium growth. Mycelium growth is kind of like the root system of the mushroom. So what is going to happen is in the laboratory, that mycelium growth is going to be put onto a sterile grain. That grain is the food source. It's the carrier of the mycelium. We are then hand broadcasting the spawn out onto the bed. The mycelium wants to eat what's in the compost more than that sterile grain, so it leaves the grain and it starts infiltrating the compost. That compost is a very high food source. It can grow very strong within it, and we're going to get a very good knit of mycelium growth. So after we're getting a good knit of mycelium growth, we're going to put our casing layer on top, and that's our peat moss, limestone, and water. And this material holds a lot of its weight in water, so it provides the constant moisture for optimal mushroom growth. Mushrooms need a lot of water. They're about 90% of its weight in water. So next we're going to see pinning. After that mushroom's got good growth, it's coming up through the mycelium growth is coming up through that peat moss as well. We're going to start to see the mushrooms pin above that surface, and that just means that it's starting to form its actual fruit. So we're going to give it some time to continue to grow there, making the temperature changes we need, adding more water, really giving it the best conditions it needs to grow well. So now we're on to harvesting. Well, this is where we're having an issue, everybody. Because it takes a lot of harvesters to harvest all these mushrooms. I mean, you could just get an idea here. This is one little area, and see how many mushrooms are growing on that bed. You know, we're talking millions and millions and millions of pounds out of this area. So every day, 7 days a week, every single day of the year except Christmas Day for most of us, we are harvesting mushrooms. So we need a workforce that can be consistent. Mushrooms double in size overnight once they've begun to pin. That means that mushroom there is going to be twice its size the next day. If we don't get it off the bed at that exact time, it's done. It's not a top quality mushroom anymore. It can't go to market for that top quality dollar. It must be taken off, sent to the cannery, which prices are low, or we'll have to steam off our crop early. So we're losing all that production. So we're gonna harvest about 2 to 3 breaks of this per house, per crop. And that's about 2 to 4 weeks of harvesting for each crop. And many farms will have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 crops going at one time. So you can understand the amount of laborers that we need to harvest this many mushrooms. All right, so just to explain this to you, many of us in this room may be forced to make difficult decisions about whether to have a major scale back in production or just to shut our doors completely, because of the inability to remain profitable without the labor to harvest our production. So here in Pennsylvania, there's been a 16% decrease in farms over the last 2 years. And that is for commercial mushroom farms growing agaricus mushrooms. And they are by far the most popular variety. I mean, that'd be whites, creminis, portobellos, your normal mushrooms you would see in a grocery store. 16% have closed their doors in the last 2 years. So that's 68 farms 2 years ago, 57 today. And we are fearing that many more will be closing their doors. So what does that mean for production? Well, the implications of both rising wages and labor scarcity have hindered production. The structural shortage of agricultural labor across all operations of the farm to the packing house is a critical barrier to increased production in the U.S. So according to the USDA and the NASS, which is the National Agricultural Statistics Service, the U.S. domestic mushroom production has dropped 2% in the U.S. over the last 2 years. That's 2% of mushrooms that are no longer being processed for the entire United States. And this is across the United States. We are having issues with labor everywhere. It's not just here in Pennsylvania. And it's also not just in mushrooms. This problem is widespread across all agriculture, who are leaving their crops on the field instead of getting them harvested. So what does that all mean? Well, many of you may know of what have happened in Detroit. So the automobile industry was taken away from Detroit. They closed their doors. So from 1950 until 2010, 61% of their population dropped off. That's a huge 61% because of one industry closing their doors. So we can imagine, with all the connections that we are telling you here today of what the mushroom industry means in this area, that if we all closed our doors, what that would mean to this area in population. And also what that would mean in tax dollars, because that does matter too, right? So in 2012, more than half of Detroit's property owners did not pay taxes. That's a loss of $131 million, equal to 12% of the city's budget. Did not pay it because they did not have the homeowners there. So hey, this really does matter, and we really want you to understand that we're trying to move forward with this, and we want to keep producing. We just need to get stronger with that. So. Last thing I want to do is just say, we welcome all of you to come out to our farms. We all have an open door policy when it comes to you guys coming out, and we would love to host all of you and come out and see what we're actually doing every day, see how they're actually grown in real life, and get an idea of what it takes to be a harvester and what it takes to really produce mushrooms here. So, again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you all coming.
And now I would like to introduce and bring up Peter Gray with Philip Mushroom Farms, who will share his story with us.
We're not proud. We'll bend anybody's ear any time of the day or night about how serious this labor issue has become. I work at Phillips Mushroom Farms. I've been doing this for 27 years. It's my wife's family's farm, and we've been in business since 1926. So we're on our 92nd year. Just got into the 4th generation. A couple of my nephews have just come on board and have started to work for the farm. So like every other mushroom farmer in here, we're all family owned. Megan and Cheryl made my job a lot easier. I thought I was going to have to say a lot more about what's going on, but I'll talk mainly about what's happening at Phillips. We produce close to 60 million pounds of mushrooms every year. We have 3 businesses, the farm business where we're doing the actual growing. We have a packing house, and we have a prepared food division. So we have, you know, a lot of fingers out there that affect a lot of other areas, like Megan was saying, related businesses in Chester County and Pennsylvania. In the last probably 5 years, probably about 5 years ago, really started to notice that we were having trouble keeping good people and getting new people in to replace them. It's gotten so bad in the last 2 years that we've actually started, you know, Megan said mushroom growers basically do three flushes or breaks. A lot of times we are having to steam off our houses after the second break, because we know that if we allow that house to continue growing, we don't have the people to get that product harvested. So you're talking about almost a 20% loss right off the top. If you take one house and you steam off after second break, you lose 20%. We've already had to pay for all that compost. We've had to pay for the spawn. We've had to pay for the filling, and we're going to have to pay for the energy and the clean out of that house. But you can imagine what 20% off the top means to us. We have approximately 750 employees on our farms. We could use about 850 to really get everything done. You know, it's very. I grew up in Kennet. I grew up right down the street from a mushroom farm, a small mushroom farm that's not there anymore. It may have gone out for different reasons, but you know, I know a lot of these people. I know everybody in this room that's involved in the mushroom industry. And they're all friends, and they're all good people. And man, it's just tough to think that, you know, some may not be here in a year or so. What we need is as a mushroom community and agriculture altogether, we've got to have some kind of legislation that creates a stable, reliable workforce. Okay, there's a bill in Congress or in Washington right now. It started out pretty good. It looked like we're going in the right direction, but it's gotten hacked down so much that it's basically not going to help us anymore. We have to be able. We need a guest worker, a year-round guest worker program, because the H-2A program now is seasonal. We, as everyone knows, we're year-round, so we don't fit into that. We need to be able to get labor here, you know, relatively cheaply and year-round, and be able to keep them. We can't have something that goes and says, okay, they can come here and work for 6 months and then go. It takes 6 months to train one of these guys, one of these people, how to pick mushrooms well. We can't do that. It's ridiculous. So what I would impress upon you guys to take back to your representatives and senators and congressmen is, you know, and we've talked about this before. I've met all your people before, and we've talked about this issue. And the problem is, talk is cheap. It's time to act, because we're starting to lose farms. I just looked up, the most recent article I could find on this was from last year, but it's estimated that right now 50% of all fruits and 20% of all vegetables are imported in the United States. You want that number to keep going up, then let's not do anything, and we'll just fade away. I hope everybody understands that's not an option. Like Cheryl said, we have a huge economic footprint in Chester County. Lots of small businesses rely on us and our employees. And when we can't get employees, those small businesses suffer, they go out. You lose tax revenue. So it's really imperative that very soon we get something going in Washington nationally to help correct this problem. I believe I hit everything I was supposed to. And I'm guessing there's going to be a question and answer session, so be happy to explain anything else. But thanks for listening, and I'm glad we can all get together.
Nia D'Agostino with Pastone Corporation is going to share some remarks with us about Puerto Rico and Pennsylvania. Thank you.
I was hoping you skipped me.
No.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nita D'Agostino. I'm Senior Vice President for Direct Services for Pastone Corporation. For those of you who may not be familiar with Pastone, we are a community development corporation that provides services to and advocates on behalf of disadvantaged migrant seasonal farm workers and other low-income families and communities. Pastone's mission is to build family and individual self-sufficiency by strengthening farm worker, rural, and urban communities. Specifically, statewide and locally in Chester County, Pastone operates the National Farm Worker Jobs Program funded by the United States Department of Labor and Migrant and Seasonal Head Start programs funded by East Coast Migrant Head Start. Working within the Agricultural Task Force spearheaded by the Southern Chester County Chamber, we believe we may have found a short-term solution to the labor shortage within the mushroom industry through the development of the Puerto Rico-Pennsylvania Labor Exchange. The project vision is to build a sustainable labor transfer linkage that provides a qualified workforce of American citizens. The project has key features, including that it will be championed by the United States Department of Labor Employment and Training Administration through the National Monitor Advocate System, particularly Juan Regalado, who's at the federal level, Puerto Rico State Monitor Advocate Carlos Roman, and Pennsylvania State Monitor Advocate John Weirther. Agricultural employers producing mushrooms will be actively engaged in this project development and support to ensure that the project provides a qualified workforce of American citizens to effectively address labor shortages. Pastone Corporation will deliver outreach, screening, training, and follow-up to facilitate successful labor transfers between Naranjito, Puerto Rico, and Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. A project planning mini-conference will be conducted in Puerto Rico in the first quarter of 2018, and we are hoping that many of the people in this room will participate. The initial project cohort is projected to consist of 25 workers with 30 recruits. That would include a 5-person reserve. The project cohort will include individuals who have worked or been trained in agriculture. The training design, again, would incorporate input from all partners, but particularly mushroom growers in Kennett Square. Pastone Corporation will deliver soft skills training to the project cohort on the island of Puerto Rico before their departure to the mainland. Workers arriving in Pennsylvania will be provided short-term on-the-job training to support acclimation to their new jobs. Culture and language appropriate interventions will be developed and implemented whenever necessary. Workers' travel, transportation, and housing will be in part the responsibilities of employers, but Pastone is currently evaluating special stipends that could be included to assist defraying these costs through national emergency grants, and in particularly with the state of Pennsylvania. Employment outcomes, for example, worker placements and retention, would be claimed by both Puerto Rico and Pennsylvania. Workers in the cohort would sign an agreement to remain in the employment placement for a minimum time period that will be defined by the growers who are part of the project, and that is agreed to by all members of the project. I'm really just standing here today to ask legislators and agricultural employers to at least support this initial project. It may be only a short-term solution, but it may connect definitely with H2C if that becomes part of what the agricultural industry moves toward at this time. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Nita? I know she covered something that some of you may not know very much about. There's a question behind. Hi.
So, what can we do to help? What, if anything, can we do collectively, or the legislators do, or the business community do to make this happen?
Well, we thought we'd start small, as we said, with 25 to see how it works. Typically, in the H2A concept, you have to have housing and transportation, all these connections. We know already within the state of Pennsylvania that already 3,000 kids from Puerto Rico have come to the Commonwealth, and they're majorly housed and working in Dauphin County, Lehigh Valley, Lancaster, and Berks counties. Chester County is such a wealthy county, it's a difficult situation to find housing and get all of that going. And actually, that's been one of the areas that we've had to talk a lot about, because transportation, transitional housing, all those things don't actually exist here. And even if we had to house people, it would probably cost $1,000 a month for an apartment, plus $2,000 for actually for security deposits. So we're talking a lot about upfront money to get people here. So I would say, if you could be part of a concept to work with us, because the monitor advocates at the federal level are already aware, and in fact, just this week we got a call from the United States Department of Labor. They're going to be placing this concept on Ag Connect on their federal site. We need national emergency grant funds. It's not going to be easy to find everybody an apartment. We may end up in Delaware trying to get people apartments in order to get them over here in order to work here. There's a lot to be worked out. So supporting the national emergency grants to come directed to this connection between Puerto Rico and Kennett Square, Pennsylvania is really the start.
I'm spitballing, but.
Sure.
So where do we have housing that's nearby? Cheney University. Is there underpopulation? They have dorm space, they're underpopulation, and they need revenue. There may be an ability to create a win-win.
So we could actually have transitional housing for those who are interested in agriculture and housed there and then transported. I'm telling you, we would be thrilled to talk to you. I think the whole task force would be. If that's possible, that's something very doable. I want your card before you leave here.
There's a whole, I'll be happy to give you a whole bunch, but there's a whole bunch of people that work in the state legislature, and that's where we need to go.
I'm also from Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico. And some of the places where they're actually coming from Puerto Rico to stay, like she said, basically it's because they have a family member and they'll move in with their families. But then what's gonna happen is soon, you know, they're gonna have too many people in those apartments and they're gonna have to move. Right now I know of a family and there's like, together, there are probably about 8 of them in a 3-bedroom home. And it's hard, very hard. And, you know, I think, like she said, there are some things there that we could do here that would benefit everybody.
Any other comments, thoughts, questions for Nita? Our task force is holding a meeting this Friday morning at the chamber office. We will discuss this topic as well as others. If there are any of you who would like to sit in that meeting, you're welcome to. Just let me know before you leave and I'll send you the information so you have it.
Sure, can I add one
Yeah,
thing?
absolutely.
One thing I
Please.
didn't say. Passstone operates across 7 states and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. So we already have 47 to 50 staff on the ground there. We have, for the last 7 months, or 5 months, been attempting to reopen our offices there across the island. And 30% of our offices still have no electric. So we are doing everything we can to assure people. They had high unemployment to begin with. There are people who want to get jobs. I actually just heard over the weekend, and I don't know if all of you are familiar, Biata Nurses actually just put an ad out that they want to bring nurses from Puerto Rico to where there are shortages in the Midwest, guaranteeing 1 month of rent and transportation to and from the island. So I think if we can do it in a health kind of environment, we certainly can try to do it here, because the shortage is not going to go away.
Any other discussion? Any other stories that, while we're in the room together?
Is this a new concept to the farmers? I mean, is this something that was previously discussed, or is this something that was just presented today?
Nita's
Yes, Nita's,
presentation?
yes.
This is
Nita's
the
been
first
in-
time.
This is the first time.
We've been doing it at the federal level in discussions because we've gotten some calls from different growers as to what we can do. And I have to be perfectly honest, I think that immigration and whatever regulations take place in the next few weeks are gonna impact an industry who's been the backbone of the state of Pennsylvania for forever, for as long, and I come from a mushroom family, so I know how all of this impacts them, so trying to come up with an idea that makes it feasible and relatable, because it's targeting American citizens, is just one way to maybe have people react.
Do you have any documents or reports that you can provide us to add?
I do at my office, and you can require to make sure that you get them.
I just wanted to elaborate on some stuff that Megan and Peter said. Wages is always something that comes up, and Pete said something interesting. It takes, 6 months to get someone really fully trained and ingrained in our systems, and we see that at all of our farms, which is that, a lot of the workers might start down lower, closer to minimum wage, but after a month, 2 months, 3 months, usually around 2 or 3 months, they're starting to get the knack of the skill set. And we all know that the first time you try something, it's hard. Sometimes you don't want to persevere through it. So if we have a program which allows us to persevere through that first 90 days, we've found that a lot of the workers can gain this skill and can earn $10, $12, $14, $16 an hour. We have many of our workers all earning over $15 an hour harvesting mushrooms. Not all of them, not everybody's going to have that same knack. But if you can get a handful of them, of the people that come up to earn that, the others are going to do well if we have a good training program and we know that they're going to be able to stick with us and work with us. We want to see them successful, and they want to see the success. So it has to be something that has enough depth of a program to allow us to give them the opportunity to learn this skill.
Sustainable.
Yes.
Well said, thank you, Chris. Anyone else, any other questions for Nita, or Peter, or myself?
I have a comment. I just want to say I've heard a lot of things about bringing people from other countries over to work here, that's taking away American jobs. And I just want to kind of bring a light to it that we have all tried to hire people from this area who are not immigrants. They last 2-3 days tops. They don't have an interest in working, in putting in the work and working in an environment in agriculture to the level that we need them to work at. So I just want to make sure that that's at the top of your head, that this is not taking away from American jobs. This is something that has always been, immigrants have always done agricultural work, even over in Europe. They're getting immigrants from other areas of the world who are doing their agricultural work as well. So it's not taking away those American jobs. And the other thing is that we may, a lot of people might say, well, why don't you move to mechanical harvesting? Well, one, it's going to take a lot of money to develop a good system that is going to work to harvest in the way that we need to harvest mushrooms for this country. The market is a very fresh-driven market. They want a top-quality fresh mushroom. And if you send a machine over those beds of, an idea of just looking at those mushrooms right there, there's 3 you can see or 4 you can see. If you took a blade and sliced them off, they would be cut in bad angles. They would be bruised. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of research to develop something And we don't see that as being our top priority right now. It's more getting the workforce in. The workforce will know can harvest the mushrooms well and continue to add to our economic stability here. So.
I also want to add, and Megan, you said it absolutely correctly. One of the things the task force did, we did do a job fair together that was spearheaded by the Southern Chester County Chamber of Commerce. And we had, I don't even know, 90 people come that day, but
Just over 50.
over
walked
50
through the door.
people come, and we had only three or four
jobs.
that actually decided to take a job. I mean, we tried everything before coming up with other ideas. I think one of the things that often hurts the industry that probably needs to be talked about, and I know we did on our task force, is that there is a lot of career ladders inside agriculture, but sometimes people don't know what that means. If you start out as a harvester, you could become a welder, or you could get a CDL, but often people don't hear that or see that, and see the impact of the industry as it really is. So, you know, marketing it as upwardly mobile and things that could, you know, people would want to learn, because at this point in time, we're not attracting younger people into the industry. So it's, often people forget that the millionaires next door might be the mushroom growers, might be plumbers, might be electricians, that had to start somewhere.
The task force is made up of 25 people that you see there, and we started meeting, as Commissioner Farrell said, after Congressman Smucker made a visit to Southern Chester County and visited one of the mushroom farms. And the people that walked out of that room included the Chamber's chairman of the board and several of our board members. And we walked out of there and realized that we needed to do something or try to help and get involved. We set up our first meeting, and Karen Eichman, who's in the room, was very instrumental, as was Daniel Ron, instrumental. We all sat together, and from there, after meeting, we developed 3 tracks. And the 3 tracks that we're following, one is to address the short-term labor crisis, and the job fair was one of the first things we did, and we put that job fair together in 6 weeks. So I'm not surprised we had 50 people. There were 50 good people. I think they were looking for other things, and I think Megan was the one that mentioned they weren't looking for harvesting jobs, but I'm not sure they understood what they were completely either. The other track is the legislative side, which is part of the reason why we're here today, is to educate and then stay informed with each other. And the third is to work on the negative perception in the community and the public awareness about what working in the mushroom industry is. And I'm working with Hillary Cumrich from the Chester County Ag Council, and we're working on some kind of a program that we can do and we can spread across social media. So those are the 3 tracks that we're working on, and we will continue to work and open our doors to our legislators. As far as the tours are concerned that Megan mentioned, I'll coordinate those with each of you and I'll email you and ask you if you'd like a tour. It does not need to be a group. It could be one person who would like to come down and make that visit, and we'll make it happen for you. And then we'll stay in touch and hopefully go from here if this is it. I don't see any other hands raising for questions, so
Program
we'll.
does need to be sustainable though, because generally harvesters don't stay harvesting if they do 2, 3, 4 years, and they are looking for that upward mobility. So any kind of a program needs to be where, you know, a year from now, we're gonna be, you know, if we get them in and they're gone, you know, there's gotta be, we're level 1.
Mhm. No, that's a good point too. Something we have to keep in mind. Thank you. Zach?
Yep. Peter had expressed some concern regarding current legislation. Is that the H2C that you now have concerns with what that bill now looks like?
Yeah, good about Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to discuss.
Well,
but
one of
Go
the
ahead.
things that really made it kind of a non-starter for us was, I think he had a cap in there, the amount of people that could be in the program the first year, 500,000 I think, and that got hacked down to half of that or less than that. Now, California could take that in a day, and that's still not going to get us. He also had there was a touchback provision where they had to,
After 3 years,
in 3
45
years, they had
day
to go
touchback,
back.
Yeah.
which 3 years is not a bad time frame. You know, you could probably live with that as long as it's not too long of a touchback, and they do want to come back. But with that cap, everybody you'd lose, you'd still have to get back into the queue. And you may wait to replace that one guy, you know, who knows, 6 months, maybe another year.
I think as the program phases in, though, it's an 800,000 person cap.
Okay.
And the idea is there'll be seasonal workers, which would be the 18 months, and then year-round workers, which would be the 3 years. And then the 45-day touchback, they can do that 45-day touchback initially. So like if they're issued that visa, they could count their first 45 days as their touchback before they come to the U.S. And the only reason I bring it up is because I don't know how many in the room are aware, but Congressman Smucker understands this issue because we have the most egg-laying hens out of any congressional district in the U.S. We have some of the most productive dairy, and then obviously the mushroom industry as well. So we understand what year-round workers are and how they're important. And I thought you made another good point that if people talked about it a bit more often, food being produced here is a national security issue. Like we want, it's food security is national security. So
Yeah, I mean, we go through, you know, us as a farm in the last 10 years have increased our, the amount of people involved in our QC department, food safety,
yeah,
by probably 500%. I mean, and it's just, we all in this room know how safe our product is, but I also touched on all the import stuff. We don't know that, you know, and that, like you said, is a national security issue.
sure.
There was one other thing in the bill. What happens to people that are already here that might be undocumented? I kind of forget. You know?
I'd have to go back and look. I know that there was some provision for if you are currently here, you could be offered a visa through that program, but as it would get into the specifics, I'd have to go back for additional clarity.
Okay.
The one other broader question that I had is, does the government shutdown impact any of you whether it be at USDA or DOL, or are you aware of additional impacts that we can go back and tell that story as well with the government being shut down in your business?
Day 2, no. Day 20, 30.
Do you know what it was in 2013? Because that was 13 days, I think. No.
I don't remember anything.
After the Gerlach bill,
Good lad.
Good lad.
Yeah.
The other thing was the prevailing wage rate. Chester County is the richest county in Pennsylvania. The prevailing wage rate is unworkable. Not to mention there is no housing anywhere near here. And the big problem is that the average American voter, which our congressmen and senators listen to, believes that food just shows up at the grocery store. The fresh produce just shows up. They don't understand the complexities of getting that there. And as you said, it's a matter of national security. If we're either going to import all of our food and be dependent on other countries to feed us, or we're going to have to import labor to grow our own food.
If I could, you were mentioning, which we're aware of as county commissioners, the difficulty to get affordable housing in Chester County. If I could offer, I don't know who the point person, whether it's the folks at Pathstone or somebody else, to meet with our community development director, and we do have contacts both at Lincoln and Cheney. Commissioner Farrell actually grew up there. His parents were professors at Lincoln, so we'd be happy to facilitate some kind of a meeting where we can, maybe make something available. And those universities, like many in this country, are struggling with their own dollars. So it may be a win-win for everybody.
I just think since they're state system schools, you might want to consider if you could package or market it. I understand we're looking at folks coming here for labor, but if you could package or market it as some sort of cultural exchange on the side, something along those lines from an educational perspective, you might be able to be more successful in that.
Also, I do believe Cheney's conditions of their buildings are starting to run down. They haven't had the money for so long now. Lincoln's a whole different story.
But there are,
Yeah.
Cheney is in a position right now where there are several buildings that are in need of repair, but there are still dormitories that are currently vacant just because they don't have the capacity. But obviously that's a conversation that we have to have to go further into this program.
I think when we meet on Friday, we'll discuss connecting Pathstone with the commissioners.
Yeah,
Would be a
I'd
good
also
idea.
suggest if it's possible, Cheryl, our COOs here, that perhaps we can get Pat Bakovitz to attend. He's our Director of Community Development, and he deals a lot with, the affordable housing issue in Chester County.
And he has already expressed his support a couple of times with us, so that's a very good idea. Thank you. We'll do that. Nita and I will definitely follow up and do that.
To that point, if Chester County were to lose over $500 million in revenue from the mushroom industry, there'd be plenty of affordable housing. And the houses that we own now would lose value dramatically.
Yeah, I was reading a lot on Detroit statistics just to understand more of it, and there was a lot mentioned about how the houses in Detroit are selling for like $500. One was listed for $1. I mean, their economic value has completely dropped off since the automobile industry has left. I know they're shrinking their city down to a small size. They're plowing over buildings, letting grass grow back, which I think is a good thing. But it definitely takes away from their economic stability as well.
Anyone else before we wrap up? Yes?
No, a lot of what you're talking about is good with Pathstone and affordable housing. What you're talking about in terms of, Pathstone, affordable housing, those are all good things to help us in the short run. But all of you need to go back. We need a longer term, realistic solution to the labor issue. I've been in the business many, many years, not from here, and have seen 2 major farms shut down. One was one of the largest in the world, in the country at one time. It is important that they get the message that we need labor, and long-term labor, not 6 month, not a 3 month. This is a business that helps the environment. It drives many other businesses. Its footprint is a very good footprint for the country. Food safety was mentioned. All those things we can keep doing, but not until we have a longer term solution to labor. So the short term stuff, yeah, we need to work on, and everybody in this room does every day. But we really need to get the message to the people in Washington that we need help. We don't need to create jobs for us. We need to create some workers. So just to make sure that's the biggest point we get out of this, not can we house people at Cheney University, which I think is a great idea. But I think the number one message is we need a longer term practical solution.
That's a point well
Thank you.
taken, and I think the show of support in the room helps us to get there, for everyone to understand how important it is. Another gentleman had a question?
Yeah, that was the same story pretty much as I was going to tell. We need comprehensive immigration reform that encompasses everything we've talked about.
Yes.
So we need a guest worker program that works for us. We need current workers who are undocumented to have a path to documentation so they don't have to live in the shadows. We need long-term solutions so we can continue to get workers year upon year on year. And we need to work together with all these short-term and long-term solutions to get where we need to go. We have an agricultural workforce crisis in our country that's across every agricultural commodity, from milk to eggs to chickens to pickles, tomatoes. You can go to any trade association meeting anywhere in the country and you'll hear the same story. And I just wanted to make sure as we close that everybody who's with the politicians, and I want to thank everybody for coming. You know, we try and drive that message home as hard as we can. But that's really what we need, and we need everything to work together. You know, if we go, what's going on is talking about the Dreamers is a big topic this week. Well, that's a piece. We need all the pieces to come together so that we can all be successful. We can have a safe food source, we can have a striving economy, and we can have good employment in Chester County and nationwide for our agricultural workers. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you. Rick?
Just looking around the room, I think we've got at least more than half of the mushroom industry represented here, which would be about 5,000 or 6,000 employees. So if anyone that owns or works for a mushroom farm, please raise your hand for a second. How many of you could need at least 10% more harvesters on your farm today? So if it's 6,000 workers, that's 600 right there.
So I just wanted to address the folks who mentioned long-term solutions, and on the Workforce Development Board, which fortunately Megan is a part of, and Pastone is one of our partners. One of the things we've talked about a lot, there are other industries where there's a gap between employer needs and available workforce. And in terms of sort of trying to market the agricultural industry as a place where people can start at the bottom and grow, you know, you might consider, if you haven't already, working with some of the high schools as well for career days and helping the kids understand, and their parents understand, that there are potential career opportunities in some of these jobs. And those are the things that we're working on throughout the county in all kinds of industries, because there are a lot of jobs that don't require 4-year post-secondary degrees, but a lot of people aren't aware that there's an opportunity in those roles. So you might consider some kind of partnership with the high schools in the area to help the kids understand that there's an opportunity for them.
Yeah, we have a partnership, I wouldn't call it a partnership, but a very strong relationship with the Chester County Technical College High School, the Penix Bridge campus, and through their principal, unbeknownst to me, copied me, I did not know he was going to do this, he emailed his counterparts at Avon Grove, Kennett, and Unionville and explained everything we were looking for when we held the job fair. And then I followed up and called each one of them and emailed each one of them and said, if you wanted to bring seniors or their parents to the job fair, they were all welcome. Unfortunately, we had 4 students attend, and they were from the high school, the Penix Bridge campus.
But I think that's why there has to be an effort to reach directly out to the high schools and be able to go into the high school
and talk,
because it's going to be very difficult to engage those kids or their parents to actually go somewhere when they don't understand it in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, thank you. We will put that in higher up on the list, because that's a separate resource and it's a good one. And we have relationships with the schools that we should be able to get inside and if they'd like to speak to the student body and give them material to take home to their parents as well.
Make sure their guidance counselors understand that there's a path, there's a career pathway.
Exactly, it is. And that's what Brian Hughes, the principal at TCHS, explained in his email to them. What you just described, he said to them on our behalf as a first step. But we need to go back and really keep that as a priority, because you're right, it's an excellent resource for us. Thank you. Any others? Okay, well, I thank you everyone for attending. I think this was an excellent first start. We'll be in contact again with next steps